For the first time in soccer history, the World Cup is coming to the Middle East. Qatar, a small country at the heart of the Persian Gulf, has been elected to host the 2022 World Cup. This video explores the impact of hosting the FIFA World Cup in Qatar on how Qatar handles human rights scrutiny to protect its international image. The state has adopted accountability mechanisms and is able to use sport as a tool to reinvent its traditional national brand that has existed for decades. Qatar is committed to international human rights standards and international development to be the epicenter of one of the biggest events in sport. The World Cup has revealed the plight and suffering of Qatar's low-skilled workers, damaging their global image. The truth is that there are still many human rights issues, with the event being held in a country that reportedly had a high record of human rights violations prior to the event. This special event is significant not only because it is the flagship event of the world's most popular sport from the perspective of spectators and participants, but also because it represents a marked difference from previous editions. Most previous World Cups have been held in densely populated countries with relatively developed football traditions and infrastructure. As a change in this pattern, the unique status of the Qatar World Cup makes it an important case study.
Starting with the workers, different testimonies and complaints have been recorded about the poor working conditions for them, including terrible living conditions, lies and delays about salary, threats, and forced labor. We could say then that the solution to this will be to restructure the working conditions, but it is a more complicated matter than it seems, starting with the hiring agents and the company, where these workers are often deceived regarding different points of the contract, where in the end no one takes responsibility. In addition, many of these workers are pressured to accept these abusive conditions by their employers, either by not renewing their resident permits, confiscating their passports, or directly being intimidated. Regarding visitors beyond certain health and legal regulations, there are different recommendations to follow. Without these, different problems could be generated that could range from a fine to jail, almost always issues related to women and the LGBTQ population. The solution to discrimination against the LGBTQ population and oppression against women is also complicated to solve because there are deeply rooted effects related in turn to Islamic Sharia law. Besides, Qatar is a very conservative society where rights of women are under male guardianship, and being part of the LGBTQ community is almost a crime. And even though the visitors are foreigners, there are no spare from discrimination and abuse by the population and the forces of the Qatar Preventive Security Department.
Qatar's image to the world is influenced by the constant violations of human rights and the rejection of certain common customs of Western countries, behavior that can be explained by the beliefs and cultural practices of said country. As Qatar professes the Islamic religion is governed by Sharia law, which is inspired by the Quran and the teachings of Muhammad that stipulate how human behavior should be religiously and politically, and govern the cultural practices of Muslims. The strict tradition of these beliefs leads to discrimination against LGBT+ people and women's suppression. Still, the abuse of labor rights and the lack of freedom of the press are connected to a social phenomenon in which the contractors use the law to take advantage of the immigrants. As stated in Amnesty International's publication, workers who refuse to work because of their conditions are threatened with having their pay deducted or handed over to the police for deportation without receiving the pay they are owed. Likewise, there is concern about how the law will affect World Cup visitors, although the International Football Federation has mentioned that for this occasion, Qatar will have a less strict perspective. But also the cultural consultant Rania Hanani, in conversation with RPP, warned that the use of revealing clothing that exposes the shoulders and knees will be forbidden, as well as showing affection in public, offensive actions, and the expression of sexuality. Restriction that, if broken, can be punished with deportation, fines, and even jail.